things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Would the audience please arise and repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States of America?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. These are the recognitions I have tonight. Our first one is Robert Gordon. Dun, 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 dun. You're actually here. That's exciting. Surprise, surprise. This is an LEA Spotlight, and I'm going to read what was written here. So, we as a student data privacy team feel so privileged to work with all of you. We know the effort that it takes to make sure. We know the effort that it makes to ensure that your students and their data are kept safe. We want to spotlight someone who shows leadership, hard work, and optimism, Robert Gordon. Robert is the Director of Technology at Box Elder School District and serves as the Data Manager and Information Security Officer here. Robert is always happy to go above and beyond to support others in improving their practice, and his friendliness and willingness to help make it easy for others to approach him. Robert brings positive, amiable, and tangible energy to every event he attends. Even though privacy is only one of many items on Robert's metaphorical plate, he displays a consistent enthusiasm about data privacy in Utah schools. Robert is also an active member of several organizations, including TCC. You're going to have to tell me what that is. Technology. Okay. So thank you for all your good work, Robert. And I want to add, thank you for working and making these meetings work. We're doing our best with our microphones, but I've told people about the YouTube. I don't know how many get on and watch, but they are good. I've rewatched a couple of them on fast speed, and so we really appreciate. I watch everything at fast speed. I'm telling you, when you listen to audiobooks or something at regular speeds, I'm like, holy smokes, do people talk that slow? But anyhow, thank you, Robert. We really, really appreciate what you do for our district.
I appreciate the recognition that Steve giving this to you. And that
Yep.
came from BESD.
Oh, was that where it was from?
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
they shipped that to us, said, hey, your tech director is being spotlighted.
Oh, well,
in this.
that's even cooler.
It's a magazine or
I just,
he didn't know about it.
it's quarterly.
Yeah.
It's a quarterly. They
Newsletter.
nominate somebody from the state.
Okay.
And so they did this just,
It was like in May that I got this. So it said LEA Spotlight, so I figured it was from somebody. I didn't know what was going on. Sorry, I'm a little out of it, but
That's all right.
from the USBE, so Utah State Board of Education, which very good and well deserved. So thank you. Our next.
Wait. And I have to say, Robert, you're really working that new goatee. I really like that. That's looking good. Looking really good. Well, I'm impressed.
Oh.
I'm impressed.
I'm a
Looking
little
good.
jealous because there's some pepper in his goatee.
Salt and pepper.
Sorry.
You're fine. All right, our next recognition is, so there is a Poetry Out Loud competition that the high schools do, and so we got a letter from the Utah Division of Arts Museum who sponsor this, recognizing our teachers in the district to submit and hold this thing in there. And I have a son who's how old is he? He's a sophomore, and they had to do it for their class. It was one of their class assignments, and then they performed it. That was one of their assignments, and then they.
To go watch.
Yeah,
The kids do a good job.
I didn't get to watch him. He read it to me, but I didn't get to watch the performance. But yes, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Anyhow, what our student board member was the Poetry Out Loud winner. But so we just want to recognize the language arts teachers from both high schools that participated in this and send this. From Box Elder High School, it's Joy Brower, Brian Whitney, Shannon Cheney, Cindy Red, and Rachel Storm. And from Bear River High School, it's Margot Tackett. And then just another recognition is that Katie Hokinson, a Box Elder High School student, went on to the state final. So that was pretty impressive that you got to read it and then you got to perform it. It's a big deal. So we're excited for them. Sorry. And then next we have the Bear River High School girls lacrosse took state again. 3 times in a row, state champions. So we wanted to recognize them and Coach Jeff Webb. They got a letter from the state is it Jeremy?
Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy. I wrote Jeff, I'm sorry, that says Jeremy. Jeremy Webb, thank you. That recognizing their hard work and their effort and their determination. And so that's a real honor to be, I mean, we know how competitive things are and how many schools there are and all that's going on. And so, and the amount of effort and work that coaches especially put into that, and as well as the participants involved make it. So we wanted to congratulate them. And then one more I just found out about today, but today Dax, tell me his last name, Cedarholm? Okay. Was recognized as the UAESP Rookie of the Year. So
Utah
that's
Association of
elementary
School
principals. Okay. So Utah Association of, that's what I thought, but you know. So he was recognized as the Rookie of the Year. So that's in the whole state. And then David Lee was recognized as a as the special contributor of the year. So I'm not sure what special contributor classifies,
Well,
but
he's been in their leadership. He's been in their leadership for several years, and being that he's in an intermediate school, sixth grade still counts towards that. And so I think as David is becoming the principal of Bear River High School, he's having to leave the association.
Oh.
So they wanted to recognize the
Recognize
time and
him.
effort he's put in.
because he spent a lot of time
Yes.
in that. Yes, he's done a great job with that association. So we wanted to recognize those two administrators from our district for outstanding work and contributing, and we're really grateful that they are in our district.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Appreciate that.
Mr. President, can I recognize one thing quickly? This is non-educational and non-academic, but I think it's pretty recognizable, and this is going to make her mad. But Assistant Superintendent Heidi Jo West, I believe about a week and a half ago, completed her third marathon in 3 months. And I ran a marathon 33 years ago, one. And I'm here to tell you what, that is an accomplishment. But 3 in 3 months, I couldn't walk for 3 months after I ran mine. So I think that's worthy of a cheer.
All right. That is great, Heidi Jo. Congratulations. Okay, thank you, Julie. Appreciate all those. Great recognitions. Okay, we just need a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, Nancy Kennedy has made the motion and Connie Archibald the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have our agenda. Now we're going to go on to our public comment. Just a few items to be aware of. Our public participation in board meeting, our policy is 1110. And we ask that patrons that come to do public comment, that they state their first and last name, first of all, and that they keep their comments to 3 minutes, not unless they're here with a group. Then it can be one person can represent the group for 6 minutes. Anyway, comments will be taken in the order that they are signed up. And if you have handouts, you're more than willing to give the board handouts. And understand that the board will not take final action or have discussion on items presented during public comments unless the item is already on the meeting agenda. We are here to listen to your public comments at this time. Anyway, and then comments on personnel issues will not be allowed during public comments. So we will start with, is it Becky Carroll, right? Becky Carroll, is that correct? Okay.
I serve on the community council at Lakeview Elementary School, so my comment is maybe more of just a suggestion. Serving since this is my first year on the community council, a lot of people started talking to me, which was pretty cool. People just don't know when the board meetings are, and I know you post it on the website, but hear me out. You guys send the district sends a lot of emails. I know when all the girls' tennis camps are, but I don't know when the board meetings are. So could you send out an email, or even you have this really great Box Elder School District Facebook page, and I looked, and there's nothing about the board meetings there. So maybe just as a suggestion, put that with the link to the agenda, and then hopefully maybe more parents will get involved. So that's all. Thank you.
You know, that's a good point, because just the last 2 or 3, we've actually sent out a combined, or a one-pager on what the board meeting was about, so we seems apropos to send something out, say, hey, it's coming up. Yep, so good comment.
Okay, thank you.
Good to know people are looking at the website.
Yeah.
It took me like 5 clicks to find what I was looking for.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, Michelle Johnson, right?
I don't know how this works. I'm Michelle Johnson. I think my biggest comment is the field trips this year were real bad. And us as parents, we didn't know that there was going to be a change in policy and things like that. And so it was really frustrating because field trips are supposed to like enrich the kids and like, you know, my kids go to Lakeview. So it's Title I. There's not a lot of money there. There's no money there, actually. And it's really frustrating to have a field trip where, I don't know, nothing was learned. It was just really frustrating. And also, I went with my first grader, and we went to the dinosaur museum, and we literally had to run to even be able to find all of the dinosaurs outside. We did not even enter the building until someone had to go to the bathroom, and we had no time to even look at all of the educational materials that they have there. So it was very frustrating. I've been going on field trips. I've been on every single one of my kids' field trips. So 8 years now. And it was annoying more than anything as a parent to be like, there's all these things we could learn. Oh no, we don't have time. We have to leave at 12:30. And then those poor teachers that had 2 hours left with kids who were hopped up on the excitement of their field trip. And then, the first graders teachers are not going to take them back and do some worksheets, like it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, this field trip is supposed to enrich them in a Title I school. It's the kids' only opportunity to go to the aquarium, to the planetarium, to the Natural History Museum, all of these places that are going to help them want to learn more. So many of the kids don't have any support at home, and they don't have any help in educational things. It's not important to their parents, so it's not getting passed down. If you can plant any kind of seed, these teachers work so hard to try and make it so that it's a fun thing, and then to have the field trip be to the Golden Spike Monument where there's a 10-minute video, and that's it. The boys that I was with, they were playing with rocks and throwing them around, and that was like the most exciting thing that they had. And the monument did try. They put together like a skit so that the kids who were coming out on field trips could, remember and be part of things, but it's just not really a full day activity. And even then, the teachers have 2 hours with those kids back at school trying to calm them down from being out and being free and doing something exciting. And it was very frustrating to know that it was a busing issue. Or, at least that's what I've heard. I don't know what it was. It was some kind of an issue that we're a big district. There's a lot of schools. I come from a rural district in Idaho, and we traveled for hours to our field trips, hours to Craters of the Moon and all of these places. And it was possible. And so I don't know what the rules are, what the difference is, and how, I don't know if there's a way to fix it, but it was very frustrating as a parent to look at our field trip and be like, wait, we're leaving at 12:30 to come back to school. There wasn't time to even do the dinosaur museum like it should be done. And the Golden Spike Memorial, it was good. I've been out there on my own, but we go on May 10th when it's a bigger production, when there's time to look, when there's something going on. They didn't even let them get up on the trains. And I'm like, that's the coolest part, to feel how hot it was and all of these things. And I don't know. That's just my comment. It's very difficult to be in a Title I school and to know that these kids have a high likelihood of falling away from wanting to do anything educational, and to have the field trip be something less than great. So that was my comment.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Appreciate both of your comments. Thank you so much. Okay. Now we'll go on to our action items. We need I hope I get this right, Superintendent. We need a motion, a second, and a vote to go into a public hearing, budget hearing.
Make a motion that we open the public hearing at this time.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Connie Archibald and a second by Karen Cronin. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We are now into our budget hearing, and Dave Roberts, our business administrator, will take charge of that.
I'm guessing there's nobody here. Guessing there's nobody here to speak on public comment for budget. Either one of you two.
I tend to read it, it's too long.
Okay, we'll come back up again.
If we get more buses, I think we've got one vote.
It's actually not the buses, it's constantly. Okay. These slides that I'm going to share with you, most of them are in the budget book. So the first slide, Catherine, if you want to click, that is on page 5 of the budget book, if you guys have that up. I thought where we have been talking quite a bit about the bond, that you guys would just like to, again, see the payment schedule, when some of those bonds fall off, so you guys could be able to communicate that with your constituents as you talk to them. So the bottom orange one, that is the 20-year GO bond that we use for the high schools. That was that 70 million. And you can see right there that we make full payments until 2028 and then a half payment in 2029. Okay. The skinny pink one, that is the one that we use for Fielding Elementary. And that will actually fall off in 2026. Okay. And that's just a small amount there. I think that's only like $200,000. And then the red is the $15 million lease revenue bond that we use for Golden Spike Elementary. And that will fall off in 2031. So, oh, is it blue? You're right, it is. I apologize. So the bottom, middle, and top, how's that? Okay. All right. The next slide that I have in this presentation, I just wanted to show you because I know the revenue has been kind of an area that we're trying to strengthen. But I just wanted to show you kind of historically what we've had in revenue. And this is also in your board book. And I did not write a page number down, so I apologize. But it's going to be in the financial section. Let's see, page 47. You will notice a couple things on this. Just overall total of all funds, which is the last column. You'll notice there's only a difference of $1 million from the previous year to the new budget year, the year that we're in to the budget year of 2025. Most of that has to do with the fact that we are not receiving the $4 million in ESSER funds. That was part of the federal funds in 31-32 under capital and bond funds. And so that $4 million makes a huge difference in total revenue going from the 24 fiscal year into the 25 fiscal year. Okay, so I just wanted so you guys can know what the big difference is there. All right, the next page. And I debated about whether or not to put this in. So this is our 2025. Okay, now this one is on the very last page of your booklet. Very last page, right before the end. It is the last page. No, it's the very last page in the book. So it's page 12. But it's page 12 under the board financial section. But it's the very last page in the book or on your PDF. So there was some concern I've heard about the COLA amount that we were basically negotiating with our employees. But I just wanted to show you guys so you guys would know that we gave everything that we possibly could as far as a COLA. So if you look at it, we had a 5% increase in the WPU, which was an additional $214 per student, okay? So if you look just right under A, that very first line is grades K through 12. That is our WPU allotment, and that did go up $2.8 million because of that additional 5%. Okay? And then you can just kind of go through there. Everything in red that you see on this sheet is a decrease in funding from the current year that we're in, 2024, going into 2025. And we don't need to go through a lot of these, but I just wanted to point out a couple things. First of all, pupil transportation, because we did stack the routes, actually went up $762,000. So our bus drivers are driving more minutes and miles because of the stacking of routes, which, to Michelle's concern, is part of the reason that we don't have as many bus drivers available to do field trips, because they used to just be able to do secondary run or an elementary run. Now they're stacked, and so they have to do both a secondary and an elementary. Really, the answer to that is we need to get more bus drivers, right? We need to have more bus drivers that are available to do field trips, and we need to incentivize our schools to take more field trips in the fall instead of the spring, because there's more competition in the spring, not just with field trips, but also because of all the extracurricular athletic events, because there's more sports team events in the spring than there is any other time of the year. And it's also the time that schools like to go on field trips. And so there's a high demand for activity runs in the spring. All right, as you keep going down there, you'll also notice that there was almost a $600,000 deduction in our youth and care. And then if you want to keep going down, you want to go to the
Youth
next.
and Care is Jerry's,
Jerry.
the Sunrise program.
Sunrise High School. Yep. Zero money. And then if you can see all the red there, but if you go down to the bottom and you look at the total net amount there, I just wanted to show you guys, even though we received an additional monies for transportation and for the educator salary adjustments and for additional special ed add-ons and everything like that, they reduced from last year to this year, they reduced our below the line items by $3 million. The state legislators. So where did they find the money to fund the 5%? Well, if you look at it from an accountant's perspective, they took it from below the line and put it above the line in order to fund the 5%. I'm not going to make any accusations, but I'm just doing it based off of what I see, right? So overall, and the other thing that I need to bring you guys' attention, last year you guys approved, in Truth and Taxation, you guys approved a flat rate, which basically just kept the rate harmless, instead of letting it float down because of assessed valuations and new growth. We kept the rate flat, so that did generate new revenue for us. So we were anticipating an additional $2.5 million in revenue because of that flat rate hold, but they also reduced the voted and board guarantee from the state because we increased our revenue. They decreased it by $1.2 million, which is the last two red right before you get to the total line, that $366,000 and the $855,000. So really, we only received $1.3 million additional new funds in tax revenue on a local level because they reduced the guarantee on the voted and board by 1.2. Correct. They kind of beat us up.
Basically, we got 50 cents on the dollar
Yep.
that we ask our taxpayers to pay.
And
But our taxpayers voted to pay. They said they would support this limit, and the legislature undercuts.
I gotta be.
What it is
I'll just be-
it's the state's equalization program. And as you know, Park City actually gives money back because they have
Correct.
so much money. But as we increase the amount that we
Receive locally.
receive locally,
We
the state-
receive less.
so
Yeah,
it-
and as we get into the budget, I'm gonna show you something I'm trying to do in order to make it so that the monies that we do receive from the state won't decrease as significantly as we try to maintain our revenue stream locally. Okay, so overall, if you look at the whole picture, we increased our revenue by $3 million. But that's because of reduction in our FTEs, our WPU, right? Our enrollment's starting to flatten out, so we're not seeing growth. And also too, a majority of that money is coming from the increase in the WPU and the increase in our transportation. If we wouldn't have had the $765,000 in transportation and the additional money that we received in ESA, that would it'd be less than $2 million. So it's not a big amount. When you talk about giving a 5% and a 1%, and covering 2.5% in COLAs and lanes, that barely covers that. So inflation, the cost of fuel, the cost of garbage can liners, the cost of natural gas, the cost of casualty insurance, as well as property insurance, all those items are going up. It's really difficult to try to balance the budget when the revenue isn't there, when you're trying to do those other items, and most of it's to benefit our employees. And so just so you guys are able to talk to your constituents, just let them know that, we gave everything we possibly could to our employees in that process. So anyway, if they would have left the items below the line there, we would have been $5 million in our additional revenue going from last year to this year. But because of all the items that they removed funding for, we only got $3 million. So you can see right there, 3.3 million is what we lost in below the line. And I could go into previous years and show you more, but I will just leave it at that without getting too political on these things. But I think there was maybe some frustration in that 0.5% and the 1% COLA, because last year we gave 6%. And so I think they were frustrated with that. I just want you guys to be able to articulate with the people that you come in contact with that we really did give as best as we could. Okay? All right, next page. Yep, sorry, Catherine. All right. I just wanted to show you guys the capital projects that we've been working on. No, so that is not in here, but I think it'd be wise for me to start adding that. It's not, and it hasn't been in the past, but I thought it'd be a good item to just let you guys know that we are trying our best to maintain our buildings, to keep them in good condition. So last year, we allocated 2.2 million. This year, we're allocating 2.5. But these are all items that you have to do at a facility level just to maintain your existing properties. But again, there's a lot of money put in maintaining our buildings. Asphalt, fences, roofs, all those kinds of things. So just wanted to give you that list so that you guys can look at that and kind of get an idea of where our money is being spent as far as capital projects. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because we're going to talk about the capital levy a little bit later. All right.
Can you email that to us?
Yes, I'll email this PowerPoint to you.
Thank you.
Sorry. And I should have done that earlier, Tiffany, so I apologize for not doing that.
It's okay, thank you.
I had a problem saving it. It won't allow me to save it in PDF, so I got to figure out why it's not allowing me to do that so I can send it to you guys in PDF.
Dave?
Yes, good.
So that 2.5 million is already in the budget.
It's in the budget for 25,
For
not this year.
25.
It's
So-
2.2 million for this year.
Okay, so that's not gonna take 2.5 out of that 3 million.
No,
extra.
it is
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Nope.
Just like, wait, maybe that's not a good idea.
Okay, so next page, just wanted to show you guys, this is also in your budget book and in the exhibits, just kind of the WPU increase as we've gone along over the last 14 years. And just so you know, the legislators are making an effort to fund education. I just think they need to be a little bit more clear on where they're getting the money from as far as giving that money in the WPU. But we are seeing increases in our WPU on a regular basis. There was back in the I want to say 2005, 6, 7s where it stayed flat for like 3 or 4 years, and we didn't get an increase in WPU. Okay, next page. This just does it a little bit more simply for you. Just gives you. So that's in your book too. So let me. It's there. It's there. That's it? Oh, it's back up? Okay. It's in your book. The only one that's not in your book is the previous one. So not that one, but the one that you guys asked, the capital projects. So again, this is just plainer, just in a linear format there, numbers, so you guys can look at that because sometimes the graphs are a a little busy. So that just kind of helps you put it in a different format there for you. Okay, next page, Catherine. All right, enrollment trend, just wanted you guys to see this. We are flattening out a little bit. That is in exhibits. I wasn't here in 2007.
When did
I don't know.
promontory open? I don't know.
So on page, it's exhibit number 17 under exhibits for the enrollment.
Promontory.
Could have. Oh, 809.
Is that the layoffs? I think so.
Okay. That's, yeah, exhibit 17, if you guys want to see that under the exhibits, just a different color up here. Okay, next, Catherine. All right, so this one here, just more, kind of just adds the numbers together a little bit better for you. So I just wanted to show you that under the, you know, I probably ought to put this in display mode so I can read the whole thing. Public school enrollment total. If you'll notice that the last 2 years is the first 2 years and since 2003 that the number of students coming into public education is actually going down. So this is state. This is for Utah. This is Utah historical. Okay. And also too, if you look at the next slide, Kevin. Correct. First time since they've been tracking this data that I could see that we've actually are projecting a negative increase in our students. So we've always had a positive increase, and this will be the first year that we're projecting a negative % increase statewide. Yeah, in the state of Utah. This is not for Box Elder School District. All right, next one, Catherine. If you look at the data there, since 2015, so in 10 years, the number of private school, homeschool, and dropout subpopulation has doubled in 10 years. Okay, so that's another factor in our decrease. Okay. Right, next slide. If you look at this, 0 to 4 in Box Elder County, we've decreased 1.5% in a 12-year period. While our increase in the age 65 and older has increased by almost 2%. So we are seeing an aging population, and those coming in is not as high as those going out. And Keith has mentioned that many times that our bubble is right now in the 8th through 11th grade. Okay. All right, just a couple fun facts for you, if I can actually get to where I can read some of this stuff. My notes aren't showing up. All right. Americans use 82 gallons of water a day for a total of 29,000 gallons of water a year, which equates to about 414 homes. Or if you take a third of Box Elder County, you could put it under an inch of water. That's how many gallons of water we use as a school district. Or if you want to cover the whole Box Elder County, the whole county would be covered under a third of an inch of water. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much water. So it equates to just under our students, right? If you count our students and then break them out in households, on an average household size in the nation, it equates to just over 5,000 households that are using water in our school district. The amount of gigabits that we're looking to increase for our traffic for the internet equates to 3 months of nonstop music, 23 days of FaceTime, and 2.5 days of nonstop YouTube. So you think about that, 3 months of nonstop music, that just gets it to that 100 gig. Is that what we're doing per day? allowing per day. But I know that when we bought cell phones, we thought, oh, I'll never get 1,000 pictures on this phone. And now a lot of us are running out of space. 6,873,000 feet of hand towels, which equates to toilet papering the state of Utah 5 times, going to St. George 4 times and leaving a trail of toilet paper with you, or climbing Kings Peak 508 times and being able to leave a trail of toilet paper towels with you. So it's a lot. Now, kudos to the custodial. Since in the last year, they've reduced the amount of usage of paper towels in the bathrooms by 1.5 million feet. And that's because they just changed brands and they changed the consistency and quality of the paper towels, so there's less paper towels being used. So our employees are doing everything possible to make sure that we're being efficient with the usage of our resources and supplies. So we served 1,405,000 plus meals served per day at an average of 1.5 pounds per meal. That's 16 million Snicker bars that we could have fed them instead of school lunch, or 5 million hamburgers, or if we could each have them participating in eating 210 of the golden spikes that they are currently, that 43-foot monument that they're going to put in. Go ahead and go to the next page and you can see that. It's equivalent to 210 of those if they wanted to eat the golden spikes. So anyway, that's the next page is just a question. Anybody have any questions that they have so far? And we'll get into more of this budget book is outside of this presentation. I just wanted to show you some quick things. All right, so if you guys will turn, there's a couple pages that I think that you guys ought to just just look at really quickly so you guys can understand some of the funding. So page 6 highlights a lot of the Utah legislative bills that are costing the district money. The one that right now we're spending a lot of time on is the 5th one from the bottom, which is House Bill 84. That's that school safety bill. That is a $100 million allocation, but it's a one-time allocation for the schools. $50 million ongoing for the school safety, I don't know, coordinator, czar, chief, whatever they're calling him. But we're going to have to continue to be able to maintain school guardians and those kinds of things in our buildings, which means it's going to be an ongoing cost for us. We have, I believe, 4 schools right now that have not dedicated or assigned or had somebody volunteer to be a school guardian. So we've got to decide how we're going to have someone there in the school while the students are in school if nobody decides to take that monitor or play that role in the school. So that will cost us money. Yeah. This one is a grant. So the schools all had, when we already have, it's already been done. Yeah, so this is all, we had to declare what we're going to use the money for. So cameras, buzz-in doors, those kind of things.
Yeah. It's not a competitive grant, but
Nope.
we'll get up to.
We'll get a percentage,
Yeah.
but we have to declare what we're going to use it for. All right. The next one I wanted to show you guys is on page 9. Box Elder is kind of unique where we sit because between Cache and Logan and Ogden and Weber, we kind of sit in a kind of a weird bubble. Similar to Cache, but Cache has some advantages that we don't have right now, and that part of that, most of that is growth. But if you look at Logan and Ogden, they have declining enrollment, but their tax base is not declining. It's actually going up, and that's because the majority of their tax base is commercial. And so when you can tax at 100% of commercial value versus only 55% of personal residence, then there's a huge advantage there when your enrollment's going down because the valuations continue to go up, right? And yeah.
Usually back on about page 2, we would have like the highest contributor businesses to our local tax. Is that something that
Maybe I didn't see
It's,
somewhere.
it's in here. I think it's in the next section, actually,
Okay.
in organization, so, yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So I just want you guys to see Box Elder's a 10th from the bottom of all the school districts in the state. Assessed valuation per student, we're 10 from the bottom. And so we are in kind of a unique situation with our surrounding neighbors because we just don't have the taxing valuation that those individuals have. And so that does put us at a little bit of a disadvantage.
It's on page 19.
Okay. So if you go to the page there, page 12 under the organization has those 10 highest taxpayers. And then notice there, 8 of those are 2 companies fill 8 of those spots. State, Procter & Gamble and Nucor are filling the majority of those spots. So those are 2 companies in Box Elder County that contribute greatly to, overall to the tax base.
Our number one used to be Ruby Pipeline, and they've dropped out altogether, so that's hurt us.
I think that is actually in the works of being purchased, coming out of bankruptcy. Page 13, right after that. This was an article that was in the Herald Journal, and I just took a snapshot of the picture of this graph. But I just want you guys to pay attention to Tremont and Fielding, double-digit growth. And they're anticipating in 3 years that Tremont's going to grow at 24.5%. I was talking to Sean before he left, and Sean told me that if they filled today, if they filled every building permit that's open with an average household size, they would double the size of Tremont, just with the building permits that are open. So we need to make sure that we plan for capital needs as we go forward. And I know that truth and taxation, I know those kinds of things aren't fun to do, but I would rather be in front of the 8 ball than behind it. And so we need to really look at planning for these kinds of things that are coming up. And I know we're not necessarily seeing the households with the children, but just the number of households will bring some children. And we are 10 to, in my opinion, we're 10 to 15 years behind what the junior high that we went and visited today, Mountain View Junior High out in West Haven, Taylor area. That was Davis County 10 or 15 years ago. Now it's Weber County, and in 10 or 15 years, that'll be Box Elder County. And we'll be looking to build a high school, a junior high, and an elementary, all within a couple miles of each other. Okay. Under exhibits, a lot of those are relatively the same. I think the only one that you may want to pay a little bit of attention to is the very last one, which is Exhibit 18. Again, that's those numbers as far as fall enrollment and our October 1 counts. And so that kind of helps you see that. And then in the board financial, that is basically the format that you guys receive the monthly financials in. So you have the 2 years that have been certified by the auditors, as well as what we approved for a budget at the beginning of June of 2023, what we're revising for the end of this year, and then our preliminary budget for 24-25 going into next fiscal year. Let me do something because I know it's in here, and I totally passed on it, so I need to get back to that because I think that'll be very helpful for you. So page 31 under the financial, 31. If you'll notice that middle column, everything that's bolded, that is the amount that we revised in the budget for this year. So I bolded that intentionally so you guys would know what items we revised for this budget year. Okay, that's a lot of information. Is there anything that I haven't covered that you guys would like me to cover or talk about? Okay. I hate to admit that accounting is boring, but sometimes it can be. But I hope you guys will notice that I try to put that information in as feasible as possible in a way that you guys could understand it and also be able to notice the changes and then also allow you guys to see what our revenue is doing so that you guys can talk to your constituents as you ask you questions. So.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate
the
that.
Yeah.
Okay, question?
Why I did notice, like, when I was looking at the other budget, purchase services are a lot less. Are we, like, consolidating those to save money? Why are they less
So.
Even from last year to this year, it seems like we've spent.
Dave,
lot
is that
less.
in
It's
our contracts with like, Patty Montgomery and Observer Tab?
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot of things. So, Heidi Jo's done a lot in order to consolidate a lot of the software issues that we've had. And Keith, getting rid of software that we don't need, narrowing down the opportunities that we use to, use them. Now that we have Emily, I'm not anticipating that we're gonna have to use an outside, attorney to ask a lot of the legal questions,
Okay.
regarding policies and procedures, and so that will drop. Well, not necessarily education policy, but a lot of it has to do with just procedures and regarding timing as well as employees, as well as language. So yeah, she's not up to par, but I think she's pretty sharp. The items that I've talked to her about, she seems to ask the right questions and goes to the right places to look for it. And so I think we can definitely use her talents. I don't know that we're not gonna completely cut off because they're under.
We're planning on Heidi Alder
Yeah, she's
having her
still on.
same contract for this next year. However, she was $1,000 a month until it got really, and we had 2 or 3 times when we had a Title IX situation where she got involved. We had an OCR complaint, and she got really involved. So then she would charge us. Yes.
Yes.
And that's to be able to
Whether
ask
we
her
use it or
anything
not that
up
month.
to a certain point. And so I think we'll probably keep that for another year.
Yeah, we will.
But there are things like OCR that I think Emily will be able to help us with, and I think we'll slowly be able to evolve out of that one. Then 12,000, of course, I don't know what it was after we paid the extra, but I think the big one is those 2 that Heidi Jo worked on with the literacy, Patty Montgomery, and also our coaching
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
through
and
Observer
some of
Tab.
them-
Those were probably a couple hundred, maybe 300,000 total. Is that pushing it too much?
No, I think it's probably
Patty
more than
Montgomery
$500,000.
one was a few $100,000
Yeah.
over a few years, so.
So we're Danielle, to be just flat honest, the truth is we just need to stay within there. We didn't add any more to the budget. We need to stay within what we have allocated and try to do as much as we can with the amount that we got without increasing costs. So I don't anticipate that we're gonna have to utilize the professional services more than we did this year, but probably at the same level, and that's why that's kind of stayed flat.
Less this year than it was last year.
Uh-huh.
So it was a savings, so that
Yep.
was good.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dave, appreciate that. Now we need a motion to go out of our budget hearing back into our regular board meeting. Okay, Nancy Kennedy has made the motion, and Julie has made the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are good. Okay, now we're back into our regular board meeting, and we need to approve our budget.
Okay, all the information I've tried to give you guys in PDF. So is there any questions for next budget year? So you need to approve the revised budget for 23-24 and the preliminary budget for 24-25. Those would be the 2 motions that I believe you need to make.
President, I make the motion to approve the revised 23-24 budget and the preliminary budget as presented for the 24-25 fiscal year.
Julie Taylor has made the motion, and Karen Cronin made the second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have our budget. Very good. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And now Dave's on again for approval of our 2024-25 tax rates.
Okay. So I apologize. Well, I don't apologize. It wasn't my fault. The assessor did not have the information in by the time I had this printed and ready so that we could meet the requirements of having this budget out ahead of time for public ability for the public to look at it as well as you guys. And so that has come out, but I have not finalized the tax rates. So I did an estimation, and that's what you're seeing in front of you on that recommendation is the certified rates based off of the different levies. And so let me just explain to you what we have there. So the basic is what we receive from the state. So we don't get a lot of say in that percentage amount. The board is the amount that you guys, as a board, a school board, get to establish and set the tax rate for. If you will notice that between the board capital and voted, there has been a little bit of a movement in the monies, and let me explain to you why. So the capital, we're decreasing by a lot from 001528 to 001078. And so that will decrease the amount that is being levied in the capital by just over $2 million. But if you go to the board, that is increasing from 0.001905 to 001920, which will have an increase of 878,000. And then the voted is going from 000466 to 000600, and that will increase that funding by 1.2. If you add those two together, it's really close to what we're decreasing the capital budget for. And the reason being is the capital, we're no longer trying to fund Grouse Creek and Golden Spike. So there's not a need for that $2 million in the capital budget. However, because of inflation and other things, we could definitely use that money in our general fund. And so my proposal is that we raise the board and voted to capture that money and put it in the general fund so we have discretionary use of that money, because capital can only be used for capital projects. It cannot be used for anything. Salaries, benefits, professional services, supplies, none of that. It can only be used for capital. So that's why this move allows us more flexibility in being able to spend the local tax revenue that we get. So that's why you're seeing that kind of the layout table that I put in there for you guys so you guys can understand what we're doing. Now, what I would like to do, when you make the motion, if you do estimated, what I'd like to do is once I can go in and calculate new growth, because I need to get that fixed, because if you actually go out to the certified tax rate table, there's an error in there because it wouldn't let me do the tax rates and calculate. So there's something going on, and I haven't had time to talk to Charlene. But once I do that, then I will bring to you guys in July the set certified tax rates that will be approved by the tax commission and the county assessor. So just make sure you guys do estimated when you do this. And then also too, I'm working with USBE to make sure that we can maximize the levy that will decrease the amount of voted and board guarantee, the equalization coming from the state. So there's a formula there, and I want to make sure that I maximize it so that instead of getting almost cut in half, that we maybe minimize that to like a 20% decrease versus a 50% decrease in our revenue. So there's a little bit of work that I got to do in order to make sure that that happens correctly. This is close. Yes, and basically in my perspective, what may happen is I may move a little bit more from capital or voted into board and raise the board a little bit and then drop the other two in order to capture that so that we don't receive a decrease in equalization or guarantee from the state. I'm just trying to minimize that as much as possible. But this is going to be close. It's all based off revenue. If you look at the total revenue amount down below that table, that revenue's the same. It's 42 million. So we're going to be around that 42 million. What may happen is where we increase and decrease the individual levies is what will be the difference.
So is this normal not to have these rates at this time?
Last year we didn't have this problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to wait for county, and by the time I had now she did have them by the due date, which was the last of May, but I already had all this printed and ready to go.
Okay. I just wondered.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's out there now. In fact, if you want, I can bring it up. But
So if it's out there now, have you done the numbers?
No. I've not, because there's an error in the
Since
table. In fact, I can try to bring it up for you guys. Yeah.
So did this just barely come out?
Yes.
Did you say?
It came out like 4 days ago.
Oh, okay. Do you know if they're aware of the error?
No, because I have not been able to get a hold of Shirley Larson.
Oh, I see.
Talk to
Okay,
her.
I see. Okay.
President Hyde, while he's looking for that,
Okay.
I am still confident, if we're just talking, a little tweaking, I'm confident enough to say that I move that the board approve the estimated tax rate for the 2024 tax year as has been presented. The overall rate, including the charter school rate, will be estimated at 0.005340 compared to the certified rate of 0.05805 for the 2023 tax year, a decrease of 0.000465.
Okay. Karen Cronin has
I'll
made the
second
motion, and Connie Archibald the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
It's spooling. As soon as it gets it up, I'll throw it up there.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
I think the next one's mine too.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're next on the
Good night.
agenda. A busy night for you, Dave.
All right, what's the next one?
Approval of internal and independent auditors.
Okay. I hope this one's easy. We would just like to continue to utilize the same people. They're actually Rod's not under contract, but Squire's under contract for 5 years, and so we just like to continue with that. Rod has gone out since we've hired him. He's gone out every year and done those audits, and so we would like to just continue with utilizing those two individual, the company and the individual, in providing the services of our audits.
And being on the audit committee, I have been very impressed. They're very professional, and I feel have done a really excellent job, so. Hey, any discussion on that?
With that, I'll make a motion that we approve the audit. I'm trying to read it here. That we approve the internal auditor and engage the independent auditor as recommended by the audit committee.
Okay, Karen Cronin has made the motion. Do we have a second? Okay, Nancy Kennedy has made the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we have our auditors. And then, now, we need to go out of our meeting into an MBA meeting.
Correct.
And so we need a motion and a second to do that, and a vote.
I'll make a motion that we go out of this board meeting and go into MBA meeting.
Okay, Connie Archibald has made the motion. Do we have a second? Is there a second? Oh, Karen Cronin has made the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now into the MBA
Okay,
meeting.
so that master lease agreement is the exact same agreement that you guys, as an MBA group, have approved for the last, what I could see, the last 5 years. So nothing's changed. It's still, the amounts are still there. The total of 345.80 on the revenue and the expenditures of 325, which gives us a difference of that 20,580. Just that's there as kind of a cushion in case anything happens with rates or costs or purchase or anything like that. So it's not really anything that has to do with the lease agreement, but just as kind of like a cushion there. So other than that, it's really simple. So anybody have questions about that?
Just as a clarifying factor, the MBA stands for
Municipal Building Authority.
Building Authority,
Uh-huh.
and the same group that makes the board up is actually the Municipal Building Authority,
They
but
are.
we have to get out of the regular board meeting to go into this meeting. That's why all this rigmarole, and it's something that you just have to do, and we do it every year to help approve the money that we got when we
Yeah,
built building.
because these funds right here are tax dollars, and you guys are authorizing the expenditure of it for a debt. That's why we have to move into an MBA meeting.
I make a motion that we adopt the budget for approve the budget for the 2024-25 fiscal year. The lease agreement for the 2024-25 lease year, and appoint the officers as our board chair and current board vice chair, with the board members as the Municipal Building Authority.
I'll second.
Okay, Karen Cronin has made the motion, and Danielle Wright has made the second, is that correct? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good. Now we need a motion and a second to go out of the MBA meeting. Okay. Nancy Kennedy has made the motion. Julie Taylor the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we're back into the regular board meeting, and Dave, it's you again.
I just feel
to
like
pick up
I'm
contributions.
monopolizing this thing here. All right.
We're gonna have to do a recognition next month
No.
for you. We appreciate Dave.
I actually like just sitting over there. All right, so this is the non-contributory rate. This is what we approve every year for the contributory individual. There's one person left in the contributory plan, and that was the plan that was started before the non-contributory plan. This is the motion that you guys make just to pick up the employee portion of that, which equates to about $12,000 a year for this individual. I would bet that in 2 years, you won't have to make this motion because they'll be the last person in the contributory plan.
At the delegate assembly this weekend, Connie and I that participated in, one of the priorities for USBA for the legislature for the upcoming year is this Tier 1 and Tier 2 retirement system. The state has now, the way they've massaged it or finagled it. So Tier 1 are the older employees that went in at a certain pay, certain scale. And then the state cut back in 2007 how much money they would contribute to the retirement plan for the Tier 2. So all of our younger teachers, our younger employees are getting hit with this to the point that most state agencies are running 2 completely separate pay scales to cover this. And so USB and those agencies have the wherewithal to do that.
The
Most
law
school
allows them to
districts-
do that, yeah.
Yes, most school districts do not have that ability. So one of our priorities for the upcoming legislative year is to have the legislature increase that Tier 2 payment so that we can make it more equitable without having to completely rewrite things. It's going to be a heavy lift, I think, because the legislature is doing their darndest to cut what they're giving us. But that is one of the priorities, and so you're going to learn more about Tier 1 and Tier 2 than you ever wanted to know in your lives.
So Tier 2 for the public school employees has a ceiling that the employees can participate at 10%. It went above that ceiling this year to 10.7. So now the employees have to contribute that 0.7%. So they will actually see a deduction come out of their check to cover that. But the law doesn't allow you guys as a board to
can't-
approve to pick that up. And so I think that's what Nancy's referring
Yeah,
to, is
we
they would
can't-
like
we
to,
can't back- we
they would
can't
like to
fill
be
that.
able to have the ability as a school board to pick that percentage up if, as a board, you guys decide to do so. Kind of very similar to this contributory. You guys have decided to pick up the contributory portion of this for this employee, which would be basically the same thing that you would do. Just lift that ceiling so that you could pick up that 0.7 for the Tier 2 group of employees. That's the big thing. And the state employees, they have that option. And so what they're doing is they're actually adding that 0.7% to the salary so that the employees actually have it in their salary to make that contribution without actually having it deducted from the check and receiving less than a Tier 1 employee. So they're actually running 2 salary tables for the exact same jobs.
Okay. Any questions for Dave on that? Okay, we just need a motion then.
I move that we approve the non-contributory retirement rates for the 24-25 fiscal year to both Tier 1 and Tier 2 employees and pickup rates for the contributory retirement plan employee.
Julie Taylor's made the motion. Do we have a second? Okay, Nancy Kennedy, the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Very good. Thank you, Dave.
Is that everything?
That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's how I feel, Julie. Yay.
Okay, now we're going to go to Declaration of Open Enrollment Schools, and Heidi Jo West, our Assistant Superintendent, will do that.
Okay, so this is under Megan Bushnell, our Student Services Director, but she's at a riveting conference, so she let me do this on her behalf.
What kind of conference?
Riveting. Oh, funny, like riveting leather work, right?
That's okay.
Will you scroll down? Okay, so we have a lot of elementary schools that are at above capacity currently. You're welcome. That's probably mostly contributed to all day K and the expansion of programs and some growth, as well as like some of the DLI situation contributing to North Park. Unfortunately, because of all of this, it puts all of our schools up to that 90% threshold, except for Willard, 3 Mile Creek, and Golden Spike will be the only open enrollment schools for next year. So that's the first thing that we're recommending, is that those schools be closed, except for the students and their families involved in the DLI programs, to students transferring from outside of the school. Another thing that we need to discuss and vote on is the possibility of changing our state's median enrollment. Previously, we've had it written that it be 10% more than the state's median enrollment, which is contributing to a lot of overcrowding in schools, as we're saying, okay, so for the median enrollment in kindergarten, it's 20 students, but we're going to open our boundaries to accept 22 students. That means that those students that have a right to attend that school locally then have a crowded classroom because we've brought in an additional 2 students from out of boundaries. So we feel it's more appropriate in those schools that are open to say that we will admit them up to 10% less than the state's median enrollment. In addition to saying, okay, well, we were going to go 10% above, so kindergarten students would end up with 22 students in their classroom. Then you have some movement of students just moving in during the school year, and then we have kindergarten classes of 24, and that's a lot on our teachers. So we want to put it down below, 10% below, so that they can accept a couple of students and then still have some room for move-in without being significantly over. So these are maybe, I don't know if you want to handle them as 2 or 1, but I'm recommending that Century, Discovery Elementary, Fielding Elementary, Garland Elementary, Lakeview Elementary, McKinley Elementary, and North Park Elementary be designated closed. We'll watch those listed. And then we're also recommending that we change it to 10% less than the state's median enrollment for an open classroom to accept out of boundary students. Microphone.
Okay, I think we can do that all in one. Just okay. So any questions for Heidi Jo West? Okay, we just need a motion then in a second.
Elementary, Lakeview Elementary, McKinley Elementary, and North Park Elementary be designated as closed except for students and their families in the dual immersion program. And that Century Elementary, Discovery, Fielding, Garland, sorry, that was the recommended motion, sorry. And then down to that school or class enrollment be capped or be changed to 10% less than the state's median enrollment to avoid overcrowding.
Okay, we have a motion by Nancy Kennedy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Connie Archibald has made the second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you, Heidi Jo, for doing that. Okay, now we have a tentative ratification of negotiated agreements, and that's the superintendent.
Okay, generally, Mark Taylor would be here, but he's at a conference for HR. And so we have met with our 3 associations, the Box Elder Education Association, which is the Teachers Association. We've also met with BESPA, Box Elder Educational
Board Professionals Association.
What's the second E? Box Elder Educational Support Professionals. I'd lost the Educational Association. They are basically all of our bus drivers, our custodians, our secretaries, just all those people who do so much work and help us so much. Paras, and we're very grateful for them. And we worked with them. And then also the Box Elder Administrative Association. And we met with them, and we have presentation there with the teachers. We've offered 0.5%, which is 0.5% of a COLA increase. They also received steps and lanes, which ends up being 2.5% of, in a COLA. And then they also had some other improvements in their salary with the 32 hours. They're going to be fully funded this year of time outside of school that they can use for preparation or for any type of training or anything like that. And so they received a 0.5% offer. Because the BESPA Association did not receive some of those extra things like that, we actually offered that association 1%, trying to make things even. And then the Box Elder Administrators Association, we took their salary schedule and filled in some dead spots in the salary schedule. And we just filled them in by dividing the last spot they were on into the next spot, and say some dead spots had 3, 4, 5 years, and we would divide that evenly. And so they were able to see a little bit of a step and lane bump on a yearly basis with our administrators. And so we felt like we needed to do that. As you know, we've lost some administrators this year to surrounding school districts because of salaries. And so therefore, we're trying to find a way to help our administrators feel appreciated. And this was some small way to try to do that. So with that, the associations have been very good to work with. I want to commend them and been very understanding. And so with that, I'd like to recommend that the board approve these negotiations.
Do you have any questions for the superintendent? Okay, we just need a motion and a second then.
I'll move that the Board of Education ratify the tentative negotiated agreement reached between the Box Elder School District and the Box Elder Administration Association, BEEA and BEESPA for the 2024-25 school year.
Okay, Tiffany Summers has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Nancy Kennedy, the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we'll go to the approval of amendment for school fees for drug testing, and that's the superintendent as well.
As with most things, the cost of drug testing has increased, and we have not increased the cost to the students to help pay for these drug tests. And so with that in mind, the only way we could have done it is reduce the number of drug tests that we give to students for the Utah High School Activities Association ability to participate. And this is something that we'd like to do to double that from $5 per student per sport to $10 per sport, and make it up to a maximum due to the fact the cost of the actual drug test has doubled in the last, it says the last year. I would assume it's probably been a gradual thing. So with that, we're trying to keep the same number of drug tests. And this is based on the fact that we feel like if we allow our students the knowledge that they could be drug tested and that they could be withheld from some of their participation in activities, that it gives them another good reason to just say no. I mean, it sounds a little bit cliche, but sometimes that does help. And so I'd like to recommend that we double the cost of that from $5 to $10.
Any questions? for the
I just have a question.
superintendent? Okay.
I remember at one point we were talking about what they test for, and they were going to add nicotine. Has that been added yet? It has. Okay. Okay. Just thanks.
Yes. I have a question. Down on the financial implications, says fees will be moved up $5 per sport per 3-sport athlete. The increased cost will be $15 per year. So for a 2-sport, is it going to be $20 a year, or are we capping it at 3?
It's 5 per sport.
I thought we were moving it to 10 per sport.
Yeah, it's moving up.
Oh,
The
okay. So
increase in cost will be 15 per year.
it would be a total cost of 20, and a total cost of for a 3 per
30. 30 for a 3-sport, 20 for a.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for the explanation.
We're okay with that?
President, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve the amendment of the 2024-25 general student fees and deposit schedule for the drug testing fee from $5 per sport to $10 per sport.
Connie Archibald has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Tiffany Summers made the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we'll go to our approval of minimum days for 2024-25 calendar, and that's Heidi Jo West, our Assistant Superintendent.
I'm glad the microphone wasn't on for that. But in the negotiated agreement, the elementary representation was tasked with considering doing 2 times a year for parent-teacher conferences because a major feedback from our parents was that they would like to see that happen. So that they're going to increase that to double the amount of time. So we will now have them in November and February. And they're going to have minimum days on those days to account for the fact that they will be holding 2 additional conferences that secondary does not hold as a way to offset the time that they spend on that. They also felt like that was really important for those teachers that need to meet with all of their DLI students because they'll need to see 60 within that window. So hopefully the minimum day or early release at 1:20 on those days will be well received by parents in trade for having additional parent-teacher conferences.
Okay, any questions for Heidi Jo?
Does that also take into account that that we're moving the high schools back to full day the first week? Is that right? Is in this one? I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in the.
So I just
That-
wanted
that
to make
is.
sure we.
That
know
first
that.
week.
Thank you for bringing that up.
The air conditioning finally got
It took
delivered.
me a second to recall that, Karen. I'm glad you
And
brought that
then
to
the
the
last
forefront.
2
Yes.
days are going to minimum days.
So based off of us changing to a 2-hour early out on Friday for secondaries, secondary teachers felt like they wouldn't have enough instructional time. So they did propose going to minimum or full days the first week of school, but elementary administration didn't feel like that was feasible for them. 1, the students are really tired and need that transition back to a full day, but 2, we don't have AC in many of our elementary buildings. So that first week of having a minimum day is very beneficial for our teachers and our students. So elementary will stay on minimum day the first week of school or early out, and minimum will be the same now. But secondary will go full day starting that first week. But at the end of the school year, both elementary and secondary will release early out on that Thursday as well as Friday. The contributing factor there is they felt like after graduation happens, a lot of students are not there, but it still allows those teachers to work with any students that are finishing up the few things that they need to.
Thank you, Heidi Jo. Any
I
other
have
questions?
a non-related question to the changes. I'm trying to remember. It says kindergarten testing is 2 weeks before school starts. I was thinking last year that the state changed that it had
Yeah.
to be during the first week of school.
So kindergarten testing, they allowed us to have 2 weeks, up to the first 2 weeks of school. We could not hold kindergarten in order to do testing. However, we feel like kindergarten testing is still important. We're trying to make a move to having the testing done so that classes can be created before school starts. Some districts are going to the model where they're just going to bring all 100 kindergarten students into the school, not knowing who their teacher is, break them into groups, test them, and then put them in a class by the next week. But we felt it would be a lot better to bring the students in. I think it's August 6th and 7th that's on the calendar to do the testing by appointment. Then we can create the classes, and we will also be able to tell the students who their teacher is when they come to back to school night. We haven't been able to do that with kindergarten. As I walked around last year, I was like, how come our littlest people don't know where their kid's going to go? So we're going to be able to tell parents now, this is who your child has as their teacher. This is the class that they'll be in by doing that testing before school starts. But yeah, the state no longer allocates days within the school year for us to do that. In some ways, it's okay because then we get to do it early and let them know for back to school night.
Okay, it's a good question, good question. Okay, do we have a motion and a second?
I recommend that we
Okay, Nancy Kennedy has made the motion to,
Second
and Connie Archibald the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Wow, that was a lot of action items. Okay, now we're on to information items. Acadians reading data. Jeremy Young, our assessment and ELL director, is here. Jeremy, we thought you were done last month, but you're back with us.
One last hurrah.
One last round. Yeah, to give a little bit of context of where this came from, at the end of every year when we finish up our Acadians testing, we meet as elementary principals and instructional coaches, math and literacy coaches, and we dive into our data and we look, at what happened on the year. We look at how that relates, what growth is, how it relates in trend data, and as we were going through that and looking at it all, we recognized that it was so good that you need to see it. And so that's
Yes.
really why
Yes.
we're here in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Well, I was the one that said, let's get Jeremy on there and let's put 30 minutes. I don't know if it'll take 30, but this is what we are here for.
Yes.
This is why we have this board. This is why we all have jobs. What this results show is really what this is about,
Yeah.
K through 5.
And I'm going to rely a little bit on Heidi Jo to chime in at any point where she has a more direct influence with what's happening and bringing about some of these things, and can speak to certain things in certain buildings or programs or curriculum or those sorts of things. And so I'll go through it. There's some things that I noticed that I will point out for sure, and feel free to ask questions at any time as we go through. As a quick reminder, Acadians.
Oh. Dang it.
It's not your fault. You can follow. Yeah. We're doing the same thing. I'm just going through the same thing that's in board books, and so you can just follow along on the PDF if you want there. I haven't changed it since then. As a quick reminder, Acadians is a measure of reading. It used to be called Dibbles. We give it to all of our students, K-5, 3 times a year, beginning, middle, and end. We use it throughout the year to provide reading interventions. The state uses it as a measure of reading on grade level and early literacy and numeracy in grades 1 through 3. And that it is also directly tied, you may have heard about this, or read articles or things, to the state's reading on grade level goal. And there's a convoluted formula. It's less convoluted now, but it's still not really straightforward in how they use that. Essentially, they use Acadians reading data, which is this reading screener that we give, and they tie it through Lexile measure to 3rd grade RISE ELA proficiency. And so they've made a match there so that, and it essentially is blue. It's blue on the charts. What it equates to is above grade level or above benchmark is the official language. The green is what we consider at benchmark, and that's kind of what we've shot for in the past. In looking forward, we'll spend more effort trying to move students into blue by 3rd grade, because the state goals of the state reading on grade level goal is that 70% of 3rd graders will be reading on grade level, which essentially means that they will get in the blue section by 3rd grade of 2027, which is these kids that we're looking at right now. So as we look at our kindergarten students, these are the students that will be measured in that goal. So as we look at, I've included on each of 2 graphs essentially per grade. This first graph is our last 3 to 4 years of grade. It's broken out by, the red is well below benchmark, the yellow is below benchmark, the green is at benchmark, and the blue is above benchmark. The section above is
all of the students in the state that use the same assessment platform that we do. And so it's not all of the kindergartners in the state, but it's all of them that use Amplify, M-Class, our measure. And so it's still a lot. It's still a pretty good measure. So for last year, it was 36,000. Well, this past year, 36,000 compared to our 800 kindergartners, you know, and so you can kind of get a measure there. You can look at trends. And so we see growth throughout the state on end of year scores for each of the past 4 years, but you see even more growth for us throughout those past 4 years. Specifically, what I want to point out this past year is if you look at the percent of well above benchmark students. So we had 71% of our kindergarten students reading well above benchmark by the end of the year. It's fantastic. It's higher than I see anywhere. It's really, really good. It's also a great start for these same students that we want to have reading at the same level 3 years from now at the end of their 3rd grade year. If we can get them, the state calls it in their trainings a push for blue in kindergarten. We can get them into blue in kindergarten. The likelihood that they stay blue or green, you know, at or above benchmark throughout elementary school is really high. And so it's really good data. There could be a lot of reasons for this kindergarten. But to me, it only makes sense that when we are instructing our kindergartners for twice the amount of time, we are able to make them or help them read better by the end of the school year. Heidi Jo has some things that she wants to talk about with that.
Not that directly, but I wanted to point out just some of our schools that have seen greater growth than that, because as a district, that's a 17% growth in our above benchmark students, which of course we're significantly higher. We've been higher every year than the state, but that's 20% higher than what we see reported here on the state. But Lakeview Elementary last year had 38% of their students were blue. This year they have 74%, and they're our most impacted Title I school. And previously they did have 2 all-day kindergartens, but they weren't able to offer all-day K to everyone. North Park Elementary, which is another Title I school for us, went from 30% blue to 64% this year. Golden Spike, 44 to 80%. Fielding, 65 to 84. And Garland Elementary, 48 to 59. Discovery, 76 to 82. So we're seeing big jumps in the number of students that are above benchmark in each of our schools in kindergarten, which lightens the load for our teachers in future years that will encounter those students. So
One other factor that Heidi Jo pointed out that she didn't right now is the fact that because we had to hire new kindergarten teachers, a lot of them are first-year teachers.
Yeah.
And we were able to achieve these with first-year teachers, which they're only going to get better. So our hope is that we keep seeing this growth as they get better, they'll help the students read.
So since the newspaper is not covering high school sports, and I don't know if the newspaper's listening, but we need to contact the paper and we need a big article about this because this is huge. And as people say, you know, what are you guys doing in school? What are you doing with the kindergartners? Are they just taking naps and, you know, eating juice? I think we contact the paper, show them these numbers and make a big deal of it because this is huge. And everybody needs to know this.
Well, and I think that, I mean, all-day K probably has affected the whole state, but that our growth is greater than the state's growth says a lot about our teachers and what's going on and the efforts that they're putting in our specific schools. And I think we need to shout it out. I agree with Nancy.
And that's really big for so many first-year kindergarten teachers, because that is a hard year to jump into. And it was the very first year of every class going to all day. So they put a lot of work into that and had really good model that they all followed. I don't know if that's their PLCs or their collaborations, but that's really impressive for kindergarten.
it is, and it's quite commendable to the veteran teachers that are helping to support them too, because in many cases there might be 2 teachers that have taught for a couple of years with 4 teachers that have never taught before or have taught kindergarten. And it's really a big leap that they've all made this year to make those kinds of changes. And I think we're just going to continue to see this kind of positive growth.
And you're really, in this room, we've had a lot of individuals that have found full-day kindergarten to be controversial. But as you look at this data, in my mind, full-day kindergarten is a wonderful, wonderful program. Of course, it's a parental choice, but wow, when you look at this, you have to say to yourself, this is what's really good for many, many children.
Yeah. As someone with a foot in 2 districts, I I have been a part of Cash's move to push more full day next year. So they did not do what our district did this past year, and they have just had minimal and are moving to push into just all day K next year. And as I've had conversations with really neighbors more than anyone and moms who don't want to send their littles to school all day. And they say, why are we even doing this? I'm able to use this data to say, let me show you why we do this. Let me pull some research to show you how good it is for your kids. And yeah, it's hard for you to give up that time and that relationship, and that's understandable. But it's academically, it is very positive for students to attend all day K.
So if talking parenthetically, and I have a granddaughter at Lakeview and a grandson over in Logan. They both started kindergarten together, both equally bright, good kids. The girl at Lakeview can outread her cousin and amazingly. And they're both reading what I consider well above their age group. But Lakeview's done a great job, and she's outreading the Woodruff kid. And both of those are Title I schools.
Yeah. Any other questions on this particular slide? Okay, if we go to the next one, the second slide on this is I was able to pull. Let's see. Nope, no, that's the right one. 11 years worth of data since we started measuring Acadians reading. It was a Dibbles when we started. I pulled all the way back for our end of year data, just as a historical trend for all of these grades. And you can see here we're the highest we've ever been in kindergarten by a long ways, with percent of students reading at or above benchmark. And that's what these graphs represent. So 88% is what we ended with. Next year was this. COVID year I cut out. Oh, did you? Yep. Because we did not assess end of year that year.
That's right.
Yeah, so it skipped. And as you look in a lot of the grades, and you can't as much see it in kindergarten, but in a lot of the grades you'll see that drop. And as we pick back up, most of them have recovered and are well past even pre-COVID levels. No, because I cut it out for all, because we didn't test. We didn't test anybody end of year that year. First grade, you can kind of see.
I can't remember, Jeremy,
Yeah.
was that the whole state that didn't test, or
Yes.
the whole state? Okay.
Yeah, we all moved to home.
Okay.
No one
That's
held
true.
school. We were
That's true.
remote learning,
I
and so we
forget.
didn't assess.
Okay.
We didn't give Rise that year. We didn't give Acadians end of year that year. We didn't.
Okay.
Half of our school got one school got ACT, the other didn't, and we had voucher, all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I try to forget it as well.
Okay.
So first grade, again, the same format. You can see the state essentially improving each year, their percentage of blue, and again, the state using M-class. So it's not the whole state, but it's a good portion. And then our district, you can see our increases. We dropped end of year 21. which if you remember, those are are 21 to 22. So those are the students that did kindergarten with masks, right? So kind of a reminder of context. And then you see the jumps after that. And again, we ended this year with 53% of our first graders above and 73 overall. And our next slide shows our longitudinal data, our trend data. Again, higher than we've ever been in first grade. You can see the drop, the COVID drop there a little bit. And then our past years pop up. Second grade, same type of thing. We're growing at a faster rate than the state is. If you look, we were actually, especially on blues, is really where our growth is happening in second grade. We're able to push more of our students into that above benchmark category, whereas the state is kind of stagnant in second grade. And I will say that second grade the data is always hard because the test changes so much and the benchmarks change very much. Very often in second grade, we'll see that data beginning to end flatline. And so for us to be moving that percentage of end of year at blue is a very positive trend for us in second grade. And again, ended with 74% of our students at or above, which is the highest we've ever been for a K-3. Third grade, it's a similar story, right? They all really look very similar in terms of how we are progressing year to year in picking up higher and higher percentages of students that are reading at or above benchmark by the end of each grade level. And so it's more than just we move them during the year, but regardless of where they come in, we're ending the year, each subsequent year, with more proficient than we had the year before. So this one, we had one year the same, and 1 year we were one short, but really great data. You can see the steady increase since the pandemic each year. So progress there. Here's fourth grade. We dropped a little bit in the blue category, but overall, with at or above benchmark, we're continuing to grow. Our school district didn't use M-class for 4th and 5th grade. Is why we don't have the 20 to 21 school year data that we've had. So if you notice, there's 4 bars for the state and 3 for us, because the first year that we moved to this platform, we just did a K2 or K3. We didn't add 4th and 5th until the next year. But we do have the longitudinal data for them. We just pulled it from another system. So if you look at that one we ended with 76, which again, the highest we've ever been in 4th grade. And then our 5th grade data, the state continuing to grow. We're still higher than the state. We dropped a little last year, but kind of recouped that this year with our growth. And I anticipate as we see those younger grades that are coming through at higher proficiencies, that will just feed into this 5th grade data as well. I think this trend for what we have going will continue for years to come. We'll see just this. We're on a wonderful trajectory with what is happening with reading in our elementary schools, and then our 5th grade at 71. This is all of our grades combined, and so this last slide, if we put all of our kids together and don't separate it out by grade, we just look at overall where we're at. Here's our last 3 years, and our growth with percentages of students at or above benchmark, and compared to the state, to 239,000 students that are throughout the state that are using the same measure over those 3 years. Yes. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Any
Other
questions for-
questions? Anything that you want to add?
I do want to add something. You know, I've gotten to be a part of the increase of these scores as an administrator in a building through coming to the district office. And I just wanted to comment on how sad I am to be losing Jeremy, because he has contributed to our ability as administrators to be able to hit the targets that we're shooting for. I still remember the first year he explained at the middle of the year what Pathways of Progress was. And, you know, not everyone was meeting it that year, but by the end of the year, a lot more were, you know, and now we hit it in almost every single grade in every single school, because he's just helping us to be more informed and understand what we're reaching for. And so I think a big portion of this is because we have had Jeremy leading us and helping guide our teachers and administrators through the process of making data informed decisions. So I just wanted to thank him for all that he's done for our district.
Yeah, 37 of our 40 grade level teams hit their Pathways of Progress goals this year, which is
Wow.
fantastic. That's incredible.
Yes.
They are,
We
they
will.
are doing awesome work. They're doing awesome work.
We'll be talking to editors next tomorrow.
There you go.
Next week. Tomorrow would be better.
Both papers on both ends.
But thanks, Jeremy. You know, the old saying, what gets measured gets done. And I think this has been very, and when I sat in on this, it's been 2 weeks ago now. I just sat there and just, holy cow. So I said, we've got to share this in its entirety to the board. So thank you. It's great work. And if elementary teachers are listening out there and principals, this is what it's all about. This is cool.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy, yes. Okay, now we go to our district webpage, Superintendent.
Let's see. Can you get that up there, Catherine? You can, but it's just not gonna. I think you might just have, I don't know, does that let you click from there?
Yep.
Hang it. What I was hoping to point out is, and I don't have it in front of me, but if you look at the top right corner, we have not had the school board on there before. You had to go to more, I believe. And so that's something new that I wanted to point out, and we just felt like that was important to get you up there. We also have our policies, the board policies in that tab, as well as in the district tab. Also, as you can see, we have our safety protocols, and those are the I love you guys protocols and all of that. And so we just thought we'd point that out. And as this lady said, websites are difficult, and it took her 5 clicks to get there. And we do have the news on there. And so I think what we'll do is make sure on our webpage, I'll talk to Marcy and make sure that maybe Monday or even the Friday before, we make sure that it says school board meeting next Wednesday, second Wednesday, and we can also put it on Facebook, and we can, you know, try to get a regular, maybe the Friday before. I don't know what's a good day. Yeah, so we could, yeah, as one of the things she does. Yeah, we can do that. Probably on that Friday, because it's by that Friday is what. So we'll get her to put that in the email thrill share, and then also on the Facebook page, and try to. I had never thought that people wouldn't know, you know, but a lot of people don't. And we heard from the focus groups that they want a chance, you know, to hear what's going on, and here's an opportunity for people to come and speak their thoughts.
One other suggestion on the website. Could we maybe get schools to have consistent web pages? So I know each school has
Yeah.
their own, but where you find things is different for each one of them. Like where you find community council or where you find the bell schedule, it's not the same.
Robert,
and some of them
yeah.
have the staff listed and some of them don't. And I
It's
don't know how
fun
big of
'cause
an
they're also
ask
When
that
we
is.
purchased this, that was the intent, is to move towards that. Where it becomes difficult, the elementary principals have worked together to make theirs as similar as possible, so all elementaries are the same. However, you don't typically have your children in 3 or 4 different elementary schools. So what we really need to kind of try to work on is that vertical alignment. I'll talk to Keith about that and see what we can
That'd
do
be- that's
to
a good
that
idea.
end.
Is it Apogee?
Thrill
Thrill
and
share?
Apogee.
Yeah. Okay.
One more thing, when we're sending out like whatever, make sure there's like, I think she mentioned it, Becky did, that make sure there's a link to like the YouTube video, not a link to the agenda, but also a link, because some people, like, they're home washing dishes and like, hey, maybe, school board meetings like where they actually can't physically come here. But that would be a good thing to put when we say, here's board meeting is coming next week. And because Robert's doing such a great job of making it available, let's get subscribers, or I don't know what to say, but.
Very good point. Good point, so, yes.
So back to your point on the consistency throughout, that's really a site-based decision, and it would really be whether we force that. We could call it a style guide where we want things to be consistent. The real key, though, is we've got all the elementaries consistent, but not all our kids are in elementaries, and so we need to be consistent across.
Vertically.
And the real point of the safety protocols up there was that's a section that no school can touch. They cannot remove those safety protocols. Because as a parent, when there's something going on at the school, we want you to be able to pull it up and know exactly where to go to find out that information and not have it in different places on every page. Unfortunately, that's the only thing that we can force. Everything else, we rely upon the schools, and that's hard because everybody wants it their way.
But I think if we explain this to the principals, they'll understand it and want to be, consistent with what their feeder schools are doing. I really do.
Well, and I've kind of like, because I do the trust land stuff. I love to look at all the different pages that the schools have because the personalities are so different. And yeah, you do kind of fish through and try and find what you're looking for. But I've enjoyed the differences just because, it reflects that person, the school and the kids, and the personality.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be doable. Okay, I think we just wanted to make you aware of some changes, some additions.
Okay, sounds great, Okay, Robert, David, you're up again. Monthly financial report, and then also our NEST funding.
All right, I apologize that I'm hogging this meeting. All right, I'll go fast. So, very simply, if you look on our monthly report, I've highlighted a couple areas in green. Line 7, also line 120, and line 136. And I just want to tell you that a lot of the ability for us to have at the end of this year some unassigned fund balance going into reserve will be based on the fact that we have about $2 million in interest income that we were not anticipating. So that is a hidden blessing that we are fortunate that we are able to get, because that is really going to affect our unassigned fund balance and what we're able to put in there, I think. That is from our PTIF, yes. And that's what Sherry talked about last board meeting, if you guys remember. But I just wanted you to realize that is where most of our savings, any balances that we're going to have is coming from, is from that revenue from interest. It's over $2 million, and we still have one more month of interest to account for. All right, furniture and equipment on line 160. Robert's got his earphones on, so he's not listening, but the reason that count right there is 68% over budget is because of some need for equipment regarding firewall as well as servers and But overall, in that budget, we will be perfectly fine in total expenses versus revenue in our Fund 32 account. So that's not going to affect anything. But I just want you guys to know the reason that is over that amount is because of some equipment that we had to buy as it was dating out, life cycle was ending, which is good. You did hear that, Robert? Oh, look at that. He's smiling.
I will add that I was able to get back $1 million.
That is true. UEN. Yep.
Pay for it. How'd you do that? Well, we've been doing, E-rate's a lot like a tax refund.
Correct.
And so as we've been putting money into our schools, then I just applied to get that back. So it's just all came back one time, in time to pay for environmental.
Yeah.
This is being implemented.
But there are going to be some big capital needs for IT in the next 2 or 3 years because a lot of that is cycling out. Okay, so we're looking like we're going to end pretty good. The other two yellows on 215 and 222, those were adjusted in the revised budget to accommodate the fact that we did not receive $51,000 in revenue, and we're not anticipating that we will, and that our expenses exceeded what we had budgeted. So those two items were revised in the revised budget for the end of this year. So, but just the one to let you guys know that those were about the only two that are really exceeded or underperformed as far as revenue. So, okay. The next one is the turf field donations. So you can see from Bear River side there, they worked really hard over the last 4 years to get the donations in to meet that 50% match. They are currently still in the $41,000 range as far as what is still necessary to complete their agreement. They have more than that already promised, and so by the end of this calendar year, we anticipate that they will be fully participant as far as the amount that they were needed in order to fulfill their what they said they would when they came to the board. So Box Elder has a $300,000 agreement with Whitaker Construction. They have agreed to pay $60,000 a year over the next 5 years, but that still will not meet the requirement that we asked of them to meet the 50% match. So we will need to work with them and continue to see if we can find additional donors to help offset that amount in the next little while. So that's going to be a little bit of a struggle there, just because the community members in the Tremont, Garland, Fielding, Bothwell area, they actually were the ones that initiated the proposal for the turf field, and so there was already traction for that, and so I think that's why Bear River has done tremendously well in gathering those donations, is because there was already a community support long before the approval from the board. And so Box Elder has some work to do in order to meet their obligation in regards to that 50% match. Yeah, Connie?
One of the reasons I asked for this to be on quarterly is we don't express gratitude, I don't think, enough. And as I and all of us here had an opportunity to go to Bear River High School's graduation, you saw that beautiful field. And I just think that companies, individuals, partnering with public education and being so generous, I am so grateful. And as we look at what's happened, I'm grateful that these individuals have followed through with their obligation, and that we keep that going, that when we make an obligation, that we finish that obligation, and that it's something that these schools have made an agreement with the Board of Education and with the Financial Business Office that this is how it's going to be. And I think it's really important that we encourage them to meet that obligation. So I really appreciate, Dave putting this on, because we really need to know the true story. And in order for us to do this in coming years, it's important that we follow through with what we say we're going to do. And that may take some effort. That may take some visits with some businesses and so on and so forth. But you know, I've been watching this, you know, since we started, and I knew the support, like Dave mentioned, the Bear River Field, it came to fruition because of some businesses wanted it. So I'm really grateful that I have seen this beautiful contributions coming in because they agreed to it and they're willing to follow through and make it happen. So this is a time to express gratitude for people that are joining hands with public education. And, you know, when this is all said and done, I think it's important for us to look at it and congratulate and express gratitude often.
Agreed, man.
Absolutely.
Connie. We could not do the job that we do without our communities. Absolutely. They're an integral part of the process of educating our kids. And you know, any time we have the opportunity to have individuals from our communities participate in educating and participating in the whole individual, I think we always need to look for opportunities to be grateful, because that really is something they don't need to do, and they do it on their own free will. And I think we need to work a little bit harder in making sure that we express our thanks for their participation, because again, there's a lot of opportunities that arise because of the grants from Walmart, from Nucor, and from individual donations in an area like this that allow us a lot more opportunities for expanding the circle of educational opportunities because of the generosity of our communities. Okay. All right. NEST funding. So, give you guys the audited amounts from last year, which was the 23 fiscal year. You can see there. Now, these costs are all the direct costs. So, as we talk about this, recognize that also too, there's a lot of indirect costs associated with the NEST schools that we have not put in here. Let me just give you an example of one that is pretty big. We have what we refer to as an in lieu, and that allows the students that live in these communities to reside with families in the Tremont and Bear River, Bothwell, wherever they choose to live. That allows them a more convenient way to attend the secondary school, especially the high school. In so doing, we have agreed that we would do an allowance for the living, as well as an in lieu of for travel for them to go home on the weekends and then come back. That amount, I would say that on a monthly basis, so the 9 months out of the year, we are spending close to $17,000 a month. And that's an indirect cost that you don't see here. But
Why?
What?
Why don't we see it here?
Because it's not associated with the NEST funding, it's associated with transportation. That's why.
But could that line be added?
Yeah, it would be
Easy
good
enough?
to know.
Well, there's a lot of costs we could add. So we have coaches, we have special ed, we have counselors, we have what is Tyson? What is Tyson? Yeah, special ed coach. So we have a lot of individuals go out to these schools that we don't calculate their costs, because it was probably more work than anything in doing that. But there are costs. Those are indirect costs that we don't add to this. These costs right here are directly tied to the NEST funding, that line item, because they're directly associated with those schools. So Tyson, for example, doesn't just go out and do special ed coaching at these 3 schools. He does it at multiple schools through the district. And so, and special ed is a funding, so all that comes. But again, I just want you guys to know that not all the items that could be charged to those schools are. And it's the same with if Tyson went to North Park. We don't charge North Park for that service.
Sure, but at the same time, if it's an extra cost, I feel like our legislators need to know that it's not just these, that there's more than this.
Okay.
I think we need to know that.
Okay.
Because that's why the struggle with the NEST funding, if we can't prove that we're using that money. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
We-
so Dave,
we
you said
can-
in lieu
we can
of.
add
Is-
more of
is
that stuff.
Transportation getting that money from the legislature for the in lieu of? Or is that just coming
No,
out
no,
of our
no.
funding?
That's just something as a board policy that we've put in our policy to pay these individuals.
But these
So it's
things
not
still
funding that
come-
we receive reimbursement from the state
So Karen
transportation.
and Ben, we need to get them out quicker than later. We've got to,
But it's still costing our school district
It is.
more money because of those
Mhm.
schools. So I think those costs need to be
Yeah.
listed. I understand that's a lot of work to figure out. I-
17 students.
But there should be a hard number on that, right?
The in lieu of will be a lot easier to get a hold of than like, for example,
like
what it costs to send
Tyson's mileage.
Tyson and Rachel Barker and those guys out to those schools. Yeah,
And when you say that's on their that's during their contracted time, so you're talking mileage,
correct?
not
Ve-
a stipend for time or anything.
Mileage, fuel. Yeah, but we still have to pay fuel for that vehicle and the wear and tear on that vehicle.
Right.
Yeah. If you times it by 9. Yeah. So a lot of those students we're paying well over $900 a month. Some are only 7, some are 5. It just depends on what the families are charging for the in lieu of for them to be hosting that student at their home. So yeah, so that one would be real easy, Tiffany, to calculate because we do a reimbursement every month on that allowance to those families.
If our legislators are saying that we're a bigger district, so we should be able to soak up those costs. We should, soak up's not the right word, what's the word? Absorb, thank you. Same thing.
It's exact same, just.
See what my brain did?
If they're expecting our
It's still
district
done by bounty towel.
We should all know what those costs that we are absorbing are. Whether it's the in lieu or whatever, the mileage on our vehicles, the gas. We need to know what those in.
Yeah, these amounts were really easy to gather because they're under the program for NES, and so they're really easy. We just go in and put the program number, and it will bring up all the costs for us. The other costs that aren't associated, we'd have to actually go out and determine how many times Tyson goes out there, Rachel Barker, and figure out what percentage of the day they're there and how many miles they drive, and figure out the mileage and the gas, and average out a cost for the wear and tear on the vehicle and those kind of things. So. No, that travel line there is the actual transportation cost for the bus. Okay, so yes, Tiffany, we can do that. I just let you know it's a little more difficult than just 20 minutes.
I'm not trying to be difficult with it. I think those numbers are important.
And I think, from my perspective in talking to those individuals that are working really closely with NEST, I think where we're at a disadvantage is they see us as a school district that's large enough to be able to just take these costs and not really have an impact on the overall budget. But I think Superintendent and I would adamantly disagree that these are costs that are. I mean, if you look, yeah, so if you look at 24, the 7-1 and 24, the next page, you'll actually see that based off of total direct costs, that the net difference is a negative $129 million. And next year it'll be more than that because we lost $202,000 in our NEST funding. And so it's going to be closer to $350 next year. Just in NEST funding alone, not to do with any of the other indirect costs that are associated with this. So yeah, so you can see that we're not even receiving enough just to be able to pay the direct costs for our NEST schools in our school district. So you're right, and we need to make sure that they understand that. And it's really funny. I went out and looked at the schools that are considered to be necessarily remote, and they have, I think, like 8 schools in there. And there were some schools that were only 30 minutes away from their operations center, and yet we got Grouse Creek that's 3.5, and we get nothing for it.
The formula doesn't make sense.
I know.
It's the state's giving money to, in my opinion, to school districts who do not need it, who do not deserve it as far as a necessarily small school.
Yeah. And I've always argued, I think they need to put more weight on the remoteness of the school and less weight on the size of the school district.
Right.
And that's where we're getting the biggest penalty is
Right.
because we're a bigger school district.
Right.
Because of our enrollment.
With less commercial tax.
Yep. And probably, I would say one of the top 3 most remote schools in the state of Utah. So, yeah, okay. So,
I just have a clarification question. You says that there will be a $129 million. Is that, what do you mean 129,000?
thank you. Did I say million? Well, that's 90% of our budget. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, it's 129,000. I anticipate that'll be probably around 330,000 next year. That will be negative just with direct costs alone. Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Dave? Okay, thank you, Dave.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much. Okay, did we have any board committee reports this month?
I just,
Nancy and
Oh.
Karen?
Well, Karen can go first.
Okay, Karen, you go first.
I just wanted to report back. We were wondering how many people could go to the Boys and Girls Club. We have 4 seats, not counting mine. So 4 additional, and not counting Heidi Joe's and Megan's. So 4 people, 4 from the district. So
So can I clarify? So Karen, you and Danielle have tickets aside from those 4?
yes, and you and
Okay.
Megan
Yes.
aside. So 4 others.
So from last month's notes, Connie and Nancy were going to go, and Julie, you were going to check your schedule.
So there's one more available, is that?
Come on, party animals.
So we talked about allowing the spouses to go. So Julie, could your spouse go? And Connie and Nancy, could your spouses go? Would that cover the 4?
No, well, you
Well,
got
we've
4,
we've
so
got
one of their
3 now.
spouses
We've
could go.
got 3.
Oh,
One
One.
spouse.
The one more person.
oh, gotcha.
Excuse me. Well, Julie's going, so that leaves us 3, so.
One more. So Soup, can you go?
I have something that night. I could.
What day is it?
Nobody else is gonna go.
What's the theme? So what's the theme? What's the costume we're supposed to wear this year? Oh, good.
Yes, you have to.
Obligatory.
If no one else can go, I can go if you guys need me to. But if anybody else would like to go, you're more than welcome to take that spot. I'm not,
It is really fun. They do a great job. It's the 21st.
okay.
Hey, thank you, Karen. Okay, Nancy.
So yesterday up at Bridgerland, they had the ribbon cutting of the brand new Frederick Quinney Lawson Health Sciences Building. It's the most astounding medical school or nursing school facility I've ever seen. They've got operatories, they've got things, they've got a pharmacy set up for kids who are working in pharmacy where they have people that can come in and work at the desks and be like patients. And they've set up office facilities so they can practice working in an office environment. You ought to just go tour this building. It is so good. This Frederick Quinney Lawson is a member of the Eccles family and has contributed mightily. Deidre Henderson was one of the keynote speakers along with Frederick. Did a great job. Anyway, they had most of the legislators there, old and new, a lot of good people. It was an excellent ribbon cutting, a lot of fun. So you ought to go see that building. It's just stunningly beautiful.
Is that right on the corner?
Uh-huh. It's that big, the big wooden stone thing on the corner. It's beautiful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate that. Okay, now to our policy review, our second reading of policy 3040, employment experience on salary schedule. Any discussion on that?
Make a motion, we pass it on second reading.
Okay, Karen Cronin has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Connie Archibald the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes on a second reading for that policy. Catherine, I'm so glad you're here because reading over the manifestation determination, it's a little difficult to understand. So I wonder, could you just put it in a nutshell?
Yeah.
And so we kind of understand it better, because I know it's very important.
I have to say, when they asked us to find an article, it took me a long time to try to find something that you would find relevant and not overwhelm you too much with special ed language and law and stuff. Basically, if we have a student who is being suspended for 10 days or more within a school year, it does not have to be consecutive, it is just 10 days, then we need to do what is called a manifestation determination.
That is where, this is if a student has an IEP, okay, a special ed student. It is where we meet, there is a set of questions you go through, and you determine whether the behaviors are directly related to the disability. And if they are, so the very top part, which is what it's not there, it is there. I just inserted this part, which is our Utah State Board of Education rules, so that you could kind of understand a little bit about what a manifestation determination is. But as you get down into the actual article, this article was talking about 5 different areas that you need to be cautious of. So the one is pigeonholing a student based on disability. That means like, so if a student has a disability of emotional disturbance, are we looking and saying, oh, they're a naughty kid, so they automatically, yes, it's related, or no, it's not. It's actually looking at the whole situation. Leaving the decision up to a vote. It's not really majority rules. It's really looking at every individual situation and determining, does this action directly related to the disability? Finding no manifestation despite behavior of a known behavior. What that is saying is you have this student who gets suspended, and then they're suspended, and then they're suspended. And we now have 10 days, and maybe they don't have an IEP. Are we looking to see if this is a child find issue? Do we need to look to see if they need to be evaluated? Is there a pattern of behavior? Just because you're suspended, it doesn't mean there's a pattern. It depends on what the behavior was. So if you're stealing in this one you're fighting, and this one, I don't know, whatever, that really aren't related. That's not really a pattern. But if you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting, we now have a pattern, right? So this is kind of a child find issue. Do we need to consider an evaluation for special education or a 504 plan? This next one, a FUBA, we call it a functional behavior assessment. That is an assessment that you do to look at why the child is behaving the way they are. What is the function of the behavior? This is just stating, just because somebody requests that, you don't have to do a FUBA every single time if you have already done that, or if they have a behavior plan. Sometimes you just want to adjust the behavior plan. And then the last part, which is probably the most important, is forgetting to link the IEP implementation failure directly to the conduct. That just means if you look at the student's IEP, is there a direct link between the behavior and the IEP? Do you need to address it in the IEP, or is it not a part of it at all? I know that's really like dry crackers. It's fascinating to me, but it is probably dry crackers to you. Do you have any questions for me?
I just have a question, like how often do you, like when you're talking about like suspending intent, like how often do you go through this process, like on a monthly basis or whatever?
Do I personally?
Or is it at a school level, or is it a district level? How does that go about?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So in the year, you have a bucket of 10 suspensions total. This is not per student. So this student, we've hit our 10 days. We meet when we have a manifestation that goes through I'm involved in that.
I would say a few in each elementary school of your most difficult problematic behaviors, but that's also been decreased since Catherine has started informing administrators about the implications of just suspending all of the time. So we actually try to avoid that by mitigating the behaviors ahead of time.
Right. And in the past, it was high. We have a lot. I was doing actual manifestations probably in the last, not this year, but the 2 previous years, I probably was doing 10 plus a year. That may not sound like a lot, but if you think, I mean, that's like at least once a month. Some of them, it was the same child a few times. So as Heidi Jo was indicating, we have tried to do a lot of education to our administrators as far as just because you do this, it doesn't mean that you suspend them now for 5 days. Is this a half a day? Is this today and then maybe tomorrow while we get a plan together for them to come back? That education, I think, has really slowed this down. The implementing of behavior specialists in the elementary has tremendously decreased this need because it is being addressed in the schools. And then also looking at accommodations instead of being punitive, it's how can we better support kids? So if a student is consistently having these behaviors, what are we doing? We can't take care of the outside. We have no control over what's going on out in the crazy world, but we can support within the schools, and we're really increasing that. And our administrators are starting to respond to that, especially, I mean, we've got this, the elementary is a little easier that way, and the secondary, our administrators are starting to respond to that. And so I'm seeing a decrease. I get a lot of phone calls. Hey, this has just happened. Should we suspend? Should we whatever? And then we talk it out and discuss the implications of it, which I think is a good change in the thought process instead of punishment of, or we want to just get the kid out of here because we're tired of them, to what can we do to help support them? Sometimes you need a break. Everybody needs a break, and we need to develop a plan. And so that's, we're changing the mindset.
I want to clarify that when I said, you know, a few times a year an elementary principal might go through this process, it would be the proactive process of engaging in this with their team rather than waiting till it gets to the 10-day suspension. So whereas this is a really formal process of saying you now must do it because the student with an IEP has been suspended 10 times, our principals will actually engage in this type of a process. When a student doesn't have an IEP, but a child has been suspended 10 times for behaviors, they acknowledge and recognize, okay, we better have a team meeting and talk about whether or not this is a function of a disability or if we need to look at them for evaluation. They also try to be proactive if they do have an IEP and say, you know, we've suspended the student several times for similar behaviors. We need to call our team together and relook at the BIP rather than waiting until we get to that 10-day suspension. So that's what I wanted to clarify, is just that they engage in that process a few times a year for their most problematic, their students with the most problematic behaviors as a preventative practice of reaching the manifestation determination.
And I have requested, and administrators have been really good to respond to this, that when we are hitting 8 days, that we as, not necessarily with the parents, but with the administrators and myself and whoever the assistant over them is, that we get down and talk about it. And let's meet and discuss and see where we're headed and whatever, trying to be proactive instead of reactive.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, you're
That was
welcome.
much better than reading the article, so thank you. Magical error, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. You too, Heidi Jo. Thank you for chiming in as well. Okay, so now, let's see, now down to our consent items.
Make a motion that we approve the consent items as noted.
Okay.
I'm just really curious about that, and why are they going to Moab?
They, that was Jamie, Mrs. Kent brought this, and
English is going to Moab, but it's the varsity kids.
they,
I'm just really mystified by this.
I think what it was they kind of just opened it up for anybody who wanted to go, and so they called them, oh, I apologize, Robert. They opened it up for who wanted to go to this program in Moab, and they just are trying to, I think they're trying to stress the fact that not just the athletes or the activities get to go on some of these trips, and So, they-
I'm just curious.
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
really curious.
As I remember reading this is the AP English. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know the varsity part of it. Yeah. It's just the AP English language. We read Ed Abbey's Desert Solitaire, and so I think they wanted to go down and spend some time in the desert. I don't know if there's anything specific down there for that. I talked to Jamie, and she said they've given her a really good discourse. They've got it right there, disclosure, what's going to go on down there. We'll travel by Suburban to get down there, so
Is there
Well,
any
just-
way we could
It's-
see the discourse or
Well,
get an
it's right here.
explanation?
It explains.
Right
So
here. Right
just,
there?
just
Oh,
for
I'm
background
sorry, I didn't see that.
information, Ed Abbey was a park ranger in Moab Arches National Park
Yes.
for years. I have camped with Ed Abbey. He liked my cooking. I went with a bunch of foresters from USU. I was the cook, and he commended my cooking. And I'm a real fan of Ed Abbey. I have most of his books.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just curious how you get to be varsity if you're Ed driving. Well, yeah, if you're Ed going down the river, going to blow up the dam, that's one thing, you know. And you probably don't even know that reference. Anyway,
The varsity, I apologize that I did not.
it should be cool. We went down in February with the USU foresters and camped in the snow at Arches and hiked with Ed for 3 days. It was a thing of beauty. He's dead. Ed died a while ago, but I have retained the frostbite in 3 of my toes since then. So just saying.
So I don't know the
They
varsity part
probably
yet.
don't have there's no, cause the form isn't meant to be other than athletic,
Yeah.
really. And so they're just trying to fill in, I think. Maybe if
I-
we're gonna open it up, maybe we should make the form,
Yeah, well, this is
Or-
really for a Utah High School Activities Association 150-mile request. So really them requesting it via this form really wasn't the appropriate thing to do.
right?
But it's really the only avenue for a 150-mile request.
I think also in those requests, we try to make sure that they have something that they're doing, they're performing, so, again, to Nancy's point, maybe they should be doing something specifically tied to it, not just as an extension of their reading, but something needs to. Yeah. So I would think that we would want them to do something there that would be educational, rather than just going down to see where the book took place.
I can talk to them and ask them if they would make sure they do that outside of oral argument and essay and poetry writing. And
I can bring my books with his signatures in them and where he complimented my cooking. I've got it written down. And pictures.
Okay.
Well, I guess we want to do extensions, but I don't think we want to set the precedence that just because somebody, took a sewing class that they go to, what is that? Nancy would know, yeah. Right, or is it Two Sisters up in Oregon where they do the quilt thing? I mean, everybody could start taking off on this, so I think we've got to have some kind of criteria.
Well, it's always the board's prerogative to say no and set that criteria right now.
So here's my question, do we limit the schools to how many of these requests they have per year?
Out of state.
Out of state, but not 150 miles?
Out of state overnight, yeah, we do not.
Okay.
And this, once again, this is based on, why the varsity came out. This is just a trip that was planned, and the 150-mile request is what they use as a form, and that's why they put varsity. And they're taking about 14. It's enough less than 2 Suburbans.
That's a good question. She's asking, are they paying for it with, it's $250.
Yeah,
They're paying for it with their own money.
yes.
So it's not, it's not.
We'll pay for the,
It'll be a fee waiver, it'll be a fee waiver.
And how does it work with like I mean, I just don't know some of these things, like chaperones and advisors. Does this district pay for their
Well,
way?
they're both the teachers. They're both teachers,
And
Brock
so-
and
And they're
Shannon.
married.
And they're married, and they're going down, they have the male and the female. I, no, this is strictly AP English class, if you wanna call it a club.
Does it fall under that if they're going on a long distance field trip, like a club, would they need to be subject to drug testing too? Like, because all the other ones that travel,
Yeah.
they have to pay drug testing
Yeah.
fees.
It is AP English. Once again, it's a consent agenda, but you pull up out any item and, deny that one to go. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Also on the consent items, I just wanted to note on the minutes, there was some misspellings and a couple other things that I've talked to Dave about, so I'm just gonna fix those. So it would need to be amended that they're approved with the corrections. Is that okay, Connie?
That's fine.
And then I'll second that, and I guess maybe if we could get some more information about the trip.
I'll be glad to talk to the two teachers, and I think we could have them come and present their rationale for it, so.
Well, I'm sure that they could tie it to something specific. Again, it's just the precedents. We just want to I, as a board member, just want to make sure that we have a clear standard so that for future.
We can do that.
So Connie has made the motion, right? And Karen the second, is that correct? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we just get that clarification there. Forward. Okay. See here. So any suggestions for future board meetings?
President Hyde,
Yes. Oh. Okay.
And Nancy's the head chef.
I would like to add in our August meeting, the transportation department to come and talk about their new computer system and what they're doing to cut cost on gasoline. They have some really neat things that they're doing that I think we need to be made aware of and allow them to come and talk about that. Jason Sparks.
Okay, so we're good with that. Okay. we're good.
President Hyde,
Sounds good.
I just want to circle back to the field trip thing, and I don't know if we want to add this in August, but part of what we tell people is that we can look at challenges as opportunities, and we have the challenge now of the busing situation and field trips. Rather than just telling them we'll plan it different seasons, I don't think we tell the sports people we'll plan your trips different seasons, but all of our sports teams have been able to make it. We've been able to make that work. So I think we need to look at the field trips to make sure that they can happen. We need those educational field trips, and if they can do them in different seasons, that's great. But if it needs to be in spring, we need to make a way that we look out for our elementary students as much as we look out for our athletes.
We didn't share this with the person who brought it, but we spent a lot of time in principals meeting and with transportation, and we've looked at a lot of factors and ways to work through this, and we really feel like we have a lot of this already completed. This was brought up about, I want to say 3 weeks ago. Is that about when we really worked this over? And I don't think she was one of the people who brought concerns to us. I don't know who that was, but there were several, and it wasn't even It was the zoo trip. She didn't mention the zoo trip that we'd found out about. So we know that it's been a problem, and we think we have some factors to help offset that.
Can I talk about that for just a little bit? Because it's predominantly elementary, and I've worked closely with Jason, and I feel like he has a lot of solutions for how to resolve and mitigate those issues moving forward that are really quite reasonable. We used to try to leave all of the field trips for elementary till everybody wants to wait until Acadians and Rice testing is done. But technically, field trips of educational value have educational value all year long, not just May 15th through May 30th. So we talked with principals about really encouraging their teachers to try to take the field trips throughout the year. And that doesn't just resolve the issue by saying, oh, you can't go during these weeks. It's saying, let's spread them out. What Jason cannot do is hire enough trip drivers to drive for 2 weeks of school because he can't offer them longevity work. So if we say we're going to spread out the field trips throughout the year so that we can keep those trip drivers consistently busy, it will allow for him to be able to staff drivers all year long. So that's one way he wants to mitigate that issue. We also, as you know, approved in the negotiated agreement to grant 20 years for competitive pay of drivers and ESP coming from out of district. So there are some people that live in our district that drive for other districts that now with us granting them 20 years, we might be able to be a little bit more competitive there. Another thing he's talked about is with the approval of the additional mechanic, he'll now be able to send his mechanics out to cover the secondary routes so he can keep those elementary field trip drivers out longer because he'll have someone else cover the secondary route so they won't have to get back as quickly. He has a lot of really great solutions. He's been proactive and seeking those out and really doing a good job to resolve the issues for the principals. I mean, they came at him pretty hard too, and he was really flexible and willing to work with them and came up with good solutions.
That's perfect. So maybe in August, here's some of those things.
When he comes in August, and if we do what Connie said, then he could add that to what Karen said, and do it all at once.
I'll email him right now and let him know.
Okay, so we all know, so we all know what's going on.
And maybe in like principal meetings, is it fair to try to have them map out at the beginning of the year and say the first grade's gonna go in November, second grade's gonna go in probably not December, January, like so that it's just a standard. Their teachers know you've got to have a field trip planned for this month.
That is something they talked about, is getting with their teachers in August and September and having them designate at what time of year they'll go on the field trips and really trying to avoid that last couple weeks of the school year, especially May where it gets kind of crazy and hectic, but there will still be some field trips that can only happen at that time and we'll accommodate those. But yes, they talked about that specifically. Thank you, Danielle.
And
I was just going to say, I think we need to let the teachers have the flexibility of when and what works with, what they're doing. And if it happens to be May, we can make it work because we've made it work with athletics. So I just don't want to.
Well, athletics gets scheduled by the state and by the region. We have no control over those.
But we've made the busing things work. We've made it work to meet that.
I agree, but that's,
well, I think that's also because that schedule's out 3 months in advance, probably.
And that,
For
yeah, that's
sports,
what I'm saying.
whereas if every field trip's not getting scheduled until the end of April, they're saying we're going in a couple weeks, that just doesn't give them enough time.
Oh, that's what I'm saying, is they need to schedule out the teachers when they want it. But I don't think we should pigeonhole, like, well, the first graders can only go in November and the fifth graders can only go in March. I think the teachers need that flexibility.
So I'll speak to a little bit of this. Transportation at Davis, we had a lot of this. The encouragement is try to stay away from the days that there's a lot of games from the high school side. So don't schedule them on Fridays, don't schedule them on Thursdays, try to schedule them Monday through Wednesday. Really was a big help in that process. Also, too, the schools were also certifying athletic directors and coaches to drive their teams, because a lot of the issue was when a baseball game would get rained out, they played the next day and they had no drivers available because they had so many field trips scheduled that there was no one available. But yet that team needs to go because that's part of the program there as far as the UHSSA is concerned. So that's a requirement that they be there. So I think there's multiple options, and I think Jason and I, as we've talked, we feel like there's some opportunities there where we can mitigate a lot of this. We just haven't had the opportunity yet to mitigate those with the opportunities that we've talked about. So I think going into next year, I don't know that we'll eliminate it altogether, but I think there will be a great reduction in the amount of field trips that we can't accommodate and work. But at the same time, I think the schools need to understand that there is a couple weeks in May that are really difficult to do. And when you start getting the spring sports going to region and state events, it really does complicate those couple weeks. And it really is, in my opinion, in talking to Jason, it's really about a 2.5 week period that really kind of sets the brakes on a lot of these opportunities for the transportation to be able to accommodate the needs or the wants of the elementary school. So I think we can work through it. And there's opportunities that are there that we can allow maybe somebody from the office arena to do the afternoon return and allow that bus driver that's on the secondary run to just be able to come back in time with the elementary. And if we assign field trip drivers to the same school that they run their regular return runs from the school, they're there dropping off the kids from field trip and stay there to pick up those elementary kids to do the run. That will help too. So there's not as much. Correct. So a lot of that will help. So we've talked about all that.
Okay, so we will schedule that in August. That'll be perfect. Okay, thank you all. Now we're going to do something a little different. We need to go into a closed session. And when we go into the closed session, we need to have the motion to include real property and discussion of personnel. But what we will do once we're into a closed session, our real property will be in this room where we were in before our meeting started, and then the discussion for personnel will be down at the end. So they'll be in 2 different rooms, okay? 2 different rooms, so just be aware of that. So, and then we will adjourn when we're done with our closed session. So we just need a okay.
I'll second that.
Nancy Kennedy has made the motion. Julie Taylor the second. We need to do a roll call vote. Wade Hyde, yes.
Connie Archibald, yes.
Tiffany Summers, yes.
Danielle Wright, yes.
Karen Cronin, yes.
Okay, we are now in closed session. Thank you all, and appreciate you, Catherine, helping us out tonight. Thank you.